Okay, let's go ahead and go on to the trial.
Anyway, the case went to trial in 1847 before a Missouri judge whose name was Alexander Hamilton, but not the Alexander Hamilton. And I checked his family tree, and as far as I can tell, this judge, Alexander Hamilton in St. Louis, he has no actual relation to the Alexander Hamilton. Anyway, the way these freedom claims worked is the enslaved person had to claim that they were being falsely imprisoned by their enslaver. And to do that, they had to show that the enslaver treated them as slaves. So in the initial trial, they did this by bringing forth a guy named Sam Russell, who testified that he had hired Dred and Harriet from Irene and paid her father, Alexander Sandford, because women couldn't, make contracts or touch money, However, then Irene's defense was like, no, not so. And on cross-exam, it was revealed that Sam Russell's wife, Adeline, was actually the one who made the arrangements to hire Dred and Harriet from Irene. Sam had just paid her dad. And that one piece of testimony Sam had given, that he hired Dred and Harriet, was dismissed as hearsay, because the testimony was really, my wife hired them, which would require his wife to then come and testify that she was the one who did it in order for it to be admissible. I'm not sure why they didn't consider that, or know that, or include Adeline as a witness. Probably because women's brains can't really handle, giving witness testimony, Anyway, so on this technicality, the Scots lawyers didn't properly prove that Irene, the enslaver they were suing, held the Scots out as her own enslaved people. So the jury found for Irene. This is something that happens all the time in our legal system. The root of the issue is never even touched upon. It's just technicalities that decide a lot of lawsuits. But at the same time, technicalities like hearsay are important rules of evidence that are put in place to keep the system fair and the standards for evidence high. So it's a tricky subject. Anyway, the Scots managed to get a retrial, but then there were years of delays before the retrial was able to happen. The issue was brought all the way up to the Missouri Supreme Court, but by that point, the trial court had already granted the new trial. So the Supreme Court was like, this is moot. The retrial was already granted. Then before the retrial could happen, it was delayed several times due to the court being backed up. Then a huge fire broke out in St. Louis, so it got delayed again. Then a major cholera outbreak delayed the proceedings even further. So remember, this lawsuit was initiated in 1846. The retrial wasn't heard until 1850. And all they had to do in this retrial was present the facts again, but this time have Adeline testify that she was the one who hired them from Irene to prove that they were actually being held as slaves. That's it. An hour or two of testimony, but it took 4 years to get it right. And this time the jury found for the Scots because they proved that they were being held as slaves even though they'd traveled to free states and territories, and firmly held Missouri precedent said that that made them free.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna break my own rule real quick. No cuss in the first hour, but it's a small cuss word. It's not inflammatory cuss word. It's a small cuss word. He didn't hire her. His wife hired her. So that means we don't know what the hell did they do? Let's look at the actions. You act like they invited the Scots in for tea and cookies. Were they servants? Were they out in the field? Were they getting paid for any of these services? What do that give you? I mean, come on, y'all. Come on.
Sorry.
Good. Y'all can't mess with me about the Super Bowl anymore.
No, what you did was worse.
But let's just be real. Come on, y'all playing semantics about who hired who, and different. You know what it was about, and you're trying to play like I didn't hire them. My wife hired them. Oh, so these two black people that showed up in your house, you ain't question that? All of a sudden they're doing services in your house. You didn't question that? You just like, oh. Well, since you're here, come on, y'all. Let's. But go ahead.
Trying to make sense out of evil.
I know. Oh, I have to show these two things real quick. Things we would show them in the future. Rap music. I wouldn't even go as far as rap music. Just go rock and roll.
Yeah, I remember these are the same people who thought rock and roll was like sending their children to the devil. So,
Show them who Obama became, and that was yeah, that's gonna mess their head up for real. Slave is a president? Is. Remember, they're back in the day. Not a slave is a president? Yeah. But anyway, go ahead, Theo.
but don't worry, it took him being half white to be president too. And his daddy couldn't come from America either.
Oh, and don't worry
So,
about it. It still took us another century.
Yeah.
So